It is Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025. I'm Dr. Grantham Taylor Hughes for my show, The Grantham Taylor Hughes Show, with my two guest hosts, Lena Suzanne Z and Stephen Anthony Hall. How are you doing, you two?
I'm doing well, thank you, Grantham.
I'm very well, Dr. Hughes. Thank you.
Well, that's really nice to know. And I just met Steve for the first time today. That's not true. We've known each other for about 8 years, right? Something like that. I think we
About
have, right?
that, yeah. Yeah.
About 8 years.
Eight
Yeah.
years lifetime.
Yeah, 8 years is a lifetime, right? Absolutely. So, so anyway, welcome to the show, Steve. It's a pleasure to have you. I was looking forward to it because he's a very serious guy. He doesn't goof around or laugh and all. So we're really working on that because he's very intellectual. So he's a very staid, posh type individual, a posh Britisher. So we're trying to loosen him up, right, Lena? We got to loosen Steve up, correct?
We do our best, yeah.
Yes, he's very posh. That, and if you believe that, actually have swampland in
Yeah.
Florida. I'm selling cheap, right? At the same time, if you believe anything I say, you're in bad shape. Just trust me. Don't believe any of it. Just like the lady got up one of my lectures, I always tell that anecdote. She stood up in the Q&A section and she said, "You know, Grantham, I haven't agreed with anything you've said in the last half hour." I said, "That's okay. I don't either." And she didn't know what to say. And she said, well, what do I do? I said, I'll tell you what, if you can do a better job, come on up here. She says, no, 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 you're doing just fine. I said, I thought you just condemned the whole thing. She said, well, that's okay. I'm going to leave now.
Mhm.
Make like a tree and leave, right? That's an old joke, right? You heard it here first. I told that joke first here. No one's ever told that joke. It's a brand new joke. Make like a tree and leave, right? So you don't know what to say, Steve, right? Absolutely.
I'm waiting for Lena just to have a question. Have you got any questions, Lena?
Well,
I,
I wanted to bring up a topic actually. Um,
a
yeah.
topic driven. We're
Yeah.
topic driven today, folks.
Recently we were talking about friends, weren't we?
Uh,
Finding friends, and we've had a few conversations about friendships.
yeah, friendship.
I've made a new friend recently, and it's called Chat GPT. And it's artificial intelligence, and you can go online and ask it anything. And it's really helpful because it knows the answers to lots of things, and then it will ask you more questions. It will sort of anticipate what other information it might need to give you, and it asks you more questions. So I suppose you could say it's artificial intelligence. It's a bit like a robot in a way. So I
Hmm.
wondered if we could.
You like a lot of people?
Hey,
Well, you see, it's called SPT, is what it is.
it's called Chat GPT.
Oh, Chat CPT. What's CPT stand for?
GPT. Do you know? I don't know. I have
Oh,
to.
there you go. See, I asked a key question and it all tumbles down, right?
Hang on a minute. Let me.
Okay, it'll take about
I,
20
I've
minutes to do
So,
that, right?
so the
I,
so the question is really, what are your opinions on artificial
20-minute
intelligence,
timer.
robots, and that type of thing?
Oh, it means what? Oh, you looked at it?
Oh, hang on.
I will, I promise. If I let go, will I fall very far? If I hang on? There's a pregnant pause there, folks. I apologize for that.
Right.
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay. Chat GPT stands for Chat Generative Pre-trained Transformer, and it was developed by an AI research company.
Oh,
It
I
is,
see. So SPT is some generic nonsense that they made up for the chat, SPT. But
it's
you said it's like a friends channel. They're talking pretty much about anything and anything like we do, everything and anything.
no, it's an artificial intelligence chatbot technology that can process our natural human language and generate a response. So you can ask it questions, and seems to understand the meaning. Um, it's quite interesting. Have a play with it online and ask it questions
It's
and see.
two things. Two
Yeah.
things I've got about that. My thoughts. One is that I've already got a friend like that, and they call him Grantham. And the second one is there's no interaction. There's no emotional interaction with an AI.
Correct.
And so, as good as it is with the questions that you put in and the answers it gives you, that's great because we've already got it with Google. If you want to know something, you just type into Google, and the answer will come back. So it's the same effect.
Yeah,
However,
absolutely.
that's one step above where it is interacting with you on
Right.
a question and answer basis. But most AIs that I've spoke to on online formats is they're limited in what they can respond. Now, this AI that you're talking about might be a next generation above that, and it might be far better. But for me, you've got no interaction. You've got not the human element,
Yeah, that's right. Human
which I
element.
think is important.
Right. And that's also a syntax problem with the computers. They're very limited to their intelligence. That's why sometimes if you ask a long-winded question, it'll revert back, default back and disappear all the time. I always was trying to work with Alexa years ago. I don't do it anymore because it was so tiresome after a while because you're trying to teach them things. Even the robots know about meditation and sort of spiritual type things, but they're not really advanced. They're like talking to a child routine. And then the syntax problem is always an issue in terms of what do you mean or semantical meaning understanding and terminology. So I think they're very limited that way. But I would try to check it out and see if they're advancing towards some more interactive information. But like Steve said, they lack the human element, the human emotion. They're too staid routine. They're not jocular and joking around and stuff. It's like it's probably better off to talk to a gnat, as I'm saying. You talk to a gnat because a gnat has a better attention level than most humans because it's like yes, my pet gnat. His name's
I,
Charles. Charles the gnat.
I spoke to a Nat last week, and she was a lovely woman called her Natalie.
Oh yeah, Natalie. I was trying to get a joke in there before you, but we have these consummate punsters around, these paranormal freaks that are out there telling puns or they're thinking about it, but they don't really. I didn't get a chance to say that. He said it before me.
Yeah,
Well, it's your fault for not speaking up. So you can't
that's
tell a
right.
joke. It's a timing thing.
So did that has that answered your question, Lena? Are you just wanting different views on what you
Yeah.
think about it,
Well,
or
but she was talking about friendship. At least I can get back on the subject. I mean, she went wayward on, she said, let's talk about friends. And then what happened to that 10 minutes ago, right?
It's because
yeah?
this is my new friend. This robot is my new friend, you see.
What's that? Oh, it's what? Processing between friends? What is the process of friendship? Yeah. Well, that's what we've been analyzing friendship, people that, pay
But
attention and help out. Yeah, go ahead, Sibo.
is that so? You're saying it's your new friend. Is that because there's no element of the human factor attached? So you're not getting any negativity coming through or positivity in that fact, in only in the sense that it's giving you an answer to a question.
It,
Or how in depth can you chat with it?
yeah, you can chat quite in depth with it, and it does seem to kind of show some emotion, or it, well, it's fake emotion, but it will say things like, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that," or that's a very concerning problem.
Right.
And then it will say, "Can I help you a bit more with that?" And I just want to ask you this and this and this. If you can answer these questions, I can probably guide you in a direction, you
Well,
know.
I see. So you're saying that's your friend routine. I think I've seen some of that. They have the AI friends routine. Oh, okay. Now I understand. But don't you feel like a lack of sincerity with that whole thing? And then behind it are the puppeteers, the guys that are running the computers going, like that, making jests over the whole thing. Going, that fool talking to the computer. We're over here making the real jokes.
Well, I think with you what you said now, because obviously you've explained a little bit deeper, that perhaps for the people, because you're saying there's a pandemic, an epidemic in this country, in the Britain, of people depression basically, and it's
Hmm.
come from the pandemic, the COVID
Oh,
pandemic.
interesting.
I wonder if that something like this would help people who
Hmm.
feel that they can't go anywhere to get proper help other than
Right.
going to see a psychiatrist or a doctor.
Yeah, that's a good
There's
idea.
something that's quite safe where you can just chat to an AI
Right.
that you would not deem to be a human, but might listen to you and actually answer some of your questions.
Right.
So I think there might be some value in that.
Yeah,
For
you're not
instance,
being condemned. Like you're always talking about a safe place, Steve. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
that's a good idea, but at the same time, with the lacking that humanity factor, it can be rather frustrating, especially if somebody
yeah,
is miserable. They would want some sympathy from the computers. Go, oh yes, we really like you, maybe, and
yeah,
not very real. But no, I understand that because you're right. A lot of people are introverted. The introversion
yeah,
routine, or like Thoreau said, quiet lives of desperation, and people don't want it. We've talked a lot about that, how people don't want to communicate because of the public speaking thing, Lena, we were talking about in reference to people don't want to make errors in their auxiliary country logic. And that's the reason why people aren't versed in vocabulary and what have you, because they say, well, why should they? Because it's not really their native language. That's a real problem because under the undertow of the whole thing is that we're skirting the native language. And as we now know, the native language is and you've heard it here first. Grantham Taylor Hughes, we heard the rumor that he speaks in tongues. Is that true? Yes.
and just for the viewers that are watching this, um, you might want to explain that what you've just done is something that is given to us at birth. And
That's
if
right.
you do that in the sight or hearing of a child, a young child, they will respond to that. And I'm sure you can explain how important that is at that
Oh,
point of
absolutely.
stage in our lives.
Truly, yeah, and that's why we talk a lot about that on my other conference calls and what have you. We have a political call that I have internationally, and that's it. Because when you were getting to the native language, people are happier or healthier, and that's why there's a lot of psychological problems because people don't even know what their native language is, and they're doing auxiliary country logic, and it's very painful for them. See, it's difficult. It's difficult to come on here if some because people get nervous about being seen on screen and what am I going to say? Am I going to read something off? Do I have extemporaneous skills? Like I've done these thousands of these things, and but as I told Lena, I don't feel like I'm a professional speaker by any means. I don't try to be. I just wing it, and here it is. What you see is what you get, and that's the nature of humanity is sound bites. We talk about the ninth sense being the ability to speak. But what is a sentient being? There's no information on sentience out there. People talk about sentience, but they can't explain what it is. The New Agers talk about the 10th door and on the top of the head being the crown chakra, being the 10th door. They don't call it a sense, a 10th sense, but if it's a 10th door, it's your 10th sense in a sentient being. So you have 10 senses, but what's 6, 7, 8, and 9? And we've talked about how six is really a sense of humor, which is indigenous to human beings. We don't see dogs sitting at a table laughing at each other. Oh, hi, hi, Bow Wow. How are you? Hi there, Rover. How's it going? We don't see the dogs laughing or the cats laughing. I think it's indigenous to human beings. So we have the sixth sense. We talk about telepathy. Nobody can think exactly like another person. But we laugh together all the time. So what is that? Well, it's a sixth sense. A sense of humor is extrasensory perception. They say an extra sense. Look at that, extrasensory perception, and now they've equated it to telepathy. Somehow they got off the track somewhere in the past where the extra sense was our sense of humor, which was number 6, sense of humor. Then you have 7, 8, and 9. Seven is reading, 8 is writing, and nine is speaking, and 10 is really dreaming. When you go to sleep at night, you're dreaming. See, so the 10th sense, the 10th door would be dreaming for people because people dream and they admit that. Psychology for a long time was discounting dreams. It was some sort of hallucination, right? So people stopped paying the psychiatrists, stopped going to them. So they conceded because of why? Well, because of monetary issues, they were losing their clientele. See, so they conceded the fact that dreams were real. But that happened maybe about 50 years ago because they were losing their clientele over that whole thing. And they were what? They were losing money, right? Like what we do here is, why are we doing this here today? To make money, right? And I want to make my appeal. I make my appeal on each one of the videos. We want you to subscribe, and you don't send in money, but you do subscribe, and then the advertisers pay us because you buy lots of things, and we indirectly gouge you that way. So please subscribe today. And I'm not going to beg you because you know me, I'm not that way, Lena. Oh please subscribe.
And you've mentioned the word subscribe. Now, a lot of people will straight away in their mind will think that's money. They didn't want money from me. And a lot of people might pay, but a lot of people will show away from it because they think subscribe means money, but it doesn't necessarily. It
No,
could do,
no.
but there's no money involved here. Not in this first instance, like you say. It's come from later when you get your subscriptions. A number of people
Correct. That's
who
right.
have better follow is a better word because
Yeah.
people will say, "Oh yeah, I'll follow that person or that group," and it's not subscribe then; it's just follow. But it's
Yeah,
the
there would
same
be a better
difference.
term, a
Yeah,
following a subscription, because a subscription means in people's mind that it's going to cost them some money when it's a really free subscription. Maybe we should emphasize that it's a free subscription, everybody. You don't have to pay money to subscribe. And the way the money comes in is YouTube pays advertisers to come in, and then people buy things from the things in the advertisement people buy. So it's like an indirect factor from the public, but not a direct gouge. I call it the gouge. Let's gouge everybody for all your money that you don't have. Well, where do I get the money? Well, we talk about that. We talk about the Sri Yantra, and we talk about the proper employer. People rather work 9 minutes a day or 8 hours a day, and that's an easy choice to make. To do a 9 minute yantra. We've shown the yantra on the calls and whatnot, Steve. So we've talked extensively about the yantra, which is very, very important for people. I always say when you create your empire, when you're financially independent, then you're going to have 8 hours on your hand to what? We'll get on our Q&A, ask lots of questions, and we'll have a nice conversation.
but just to go into the yantra in the 9 minutes, um, but attached to it, it's not straight as simple as that. Yes, it is pretty simple, but you've got to have the mindset as well behind that because the mindset is part of your creating for your world. So if you're doing the yantra and you're concentrating on that 9 minutes a day, you've got to have the mental faculty behind it to think in a positive way that whatever you're putting through into the yantra is going to happen to you. So if
Mm,
you want an empire, whatever your empire is going to be, you've got to think an imagery in your mind of what you want.
absolutely.
It's not just gonna appear out of thin air if you don't put the effort in. So
That's
you
right.
still have to put the effort in, but you won't
Absolutely.
be slaving away on the grindstone for 8 hours.
That's right. Well said. I appreciate that. It's true because you still have to do the practice. You can't just say, well, I have this tool, it's in the toolbox. You got to take it out and utilize that tool. We have to do something. Remember, I'm always repeating that Tennyson line, ours is not the reason why, ours is but to do and die. That's the way he said it. But the ancient that actually said it originally was ours not the reason why, ours is but to do or die. So the key verb phrase in there is to do something. As human beings, exoterically, we need to do things outside. Because I'm a theist, I believe in a supreme deity. At the same time, what is our responsibility? Well, we have to do things. I don't think the divine it is really doing anything. It's in a great void of a no thing, but it's a very big power which I have no idea about that whole idea, that interesting concept. But at the same time, I think that in the practice, people get really tired of the whole thing because they don't really know the responsibility of doing. The doing factor is very important in that phrase, to do or die. See, So a simulation of life is interaction, like we're interacting today. It's a lot of fun. I'm really glad you're here, Steve. It's really nice, don't you think, Lena? It's really nice to have Steve on the
Yeah,
call.
it's really great. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
my
But
pleasure.
but now I'm leaving, I guess. I'll see you later, everybody. I'll see you later. Just kidding.
But just coming back to that again, that people have got to understand that you can want a fortune. You could want your fortune to happen, whatever that fortune is. Say, for instance, you get £500 a week through whatever you do in that week, and then in the next week you spend £490 off that 500. You've only got £10 left. So your empire is going to be very, very slow in the building process, and it's about balance. So if you've got £500 a week, the best thing to do, put the balance is save 250 to something for whatever, for holidays or whatever, and then you're going to have a balance in your life. But if you spend what you get, you're going to end up with nothing anyway. You're just going to spend and live at that
Yes,
level all the time
right.
and never
That's right.
get any further.
Well,
So it's all about balance.
yeah. Well, it's also about letting go of these things. I always tell people, don't voice your negativity. You can think about it, so we can't help but do that, but don't make the negative molds by saying it. It's like when people are talking a lot of positive things, that's a very good thing. However, it's naive too, because we need to address some of the negatives, but not a lot. Like you said, Steve, it's a balance factor. As long as we're getting into the balance work, but not being naive to what's going on out there. But again, you could get carried away with stuff and cause a lot of havoc and making you're involved with some kind of movement routine, and that becomes your expertise. And in that process, it's too negative. Our world is already too negative, and we talk a lot on the calls about moving towards a golden time. And I think we really are, because people are tired of all the negativity. They want to, they think in a positive way, but where's the forum of positivity? We're trying to create a forum here of positivity and very good ideas and concepts, because we have all that within each one. Each one of us has good ideas. So what's that song Bing Crosby song, Lena, you had? Emphasize the positive, get rid of the negative. 1930s song, right? And it's very good. Even though I don't want to, Grantham Taylor uses a positive thinking guru. No, I'm not. I'm not really, but sort of. Because I'm always saying you want to commend people, not condemn them. Yes, go ahead, sir.
It's like that positive analogy that we talk about, and we've talked about it fairly recently about people. I've heard it many times where they say, "Oh, I've got aches and pains. I'm getting old." As soon as they say that, it's registering in their mind, "I'm getting old." And if they just change that to I'm not aching, I'm feeling young, I'm going to get young. If you could get that into your mind and your persona, you will be young. You won't be getting
Absolutely.
old. And
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
about the power of positivity. But you've got to give yourself a chance and get that affirmation into your mind rather
Correct.
than being negative on the negative. "Oh, I'm getting old. I'm going to be old. I'm 65 next year. Oh, I'm decrepit." You've got to
Yeah.
think totally the opposite.
Well,
Mhm.
And
Steve, a lady said that on the Wrist Flex show, she had seen the Wrist Flex show. It was several years ago. She said, "Whatever you're doing, Grantham, keep doing it. You look younger than I was on Wrist Flex." And I told her, I said, I've been on a rejuvenation program because when I turned 57, I became raw vegan. So 57 years of debauchery over your physical body, you got to recover from that. So it might not happen overnight. So you just got to stay with the discipline. Just stay with it, folks. If you're not getting results, but there was get some people getting some immediate results from the yontra. We had some good Q&A on that, Steve, where people were really excited about it, because it is exciting, because it's a really wonderful thing to do, because you're focusing your attention, all the power that is each one of the individuals, that 10,000 suns of power, is now being focused. Now, the attention is now being augmented by, that's the neat thing about it, is there's an augmentation of just utilizing your eyes. People don't realize that, how important the eyes, because we're always talking about the eyes are the creator. You see, so when we get down to cases with that, people don't have to be nervous about that whole thing, because we're talking about the open cosmos, about there's no limited space, there's unlimited space, so people don't have to start competing and being concerned about their neighbors making the same empire better, we need to applaud that. We have to commend people and stop condemning people for their creations. And that's the safe place, Steve, is when we commend people instead of bringing them down and condemning them. See, and that's the problem. And the big problem is because the cosmos is limited. If we unlimit that or open up the borders, so to speak, quite literally, then people won't be concerned about having limited amounts of things. They can think about the more and more. And Wallace Wattles' book, The Science of Getting Rich, and chapter 14, it was the impression of increase. We won't be limited with the idea of increase. We know it's unlimited, see? And then, you can go to Sotheby's and at the auction and buy a Picasso. I think they're like $300 million now. Back in the day, they were a lot less. And I have a few in my basement. That's why. That's not true. I don't have any Picassos. It's not true at all. What about the one over the wall behind you? Yes, that is no, it's not a Picasso. It's a Rembrandt.
It's not true you've got a basement. It's
Well,
not true
yeah,
you've got a basement.
that's right, in the basement, next to the wine cellar, next to the amphitheater. Never mind.
That brings me on to another, what you've just been talking about, the body. Could you explain to the viewers the importance and why we need to hydrate to prevent dehydration?
Well, the hydration thing is because my opinion is everything is 100% water. Not they have a percentage of it. On most factions talk about being certain percentage of water, but my opinion is everything is liquid. It's totally water. And then we had defined the fact we're in an MDC. I call it Macy Dust concept. We're in this huge bubble. Wherever we're sitting right now, we're in the middle of a water bubble, right? And that's where they get the spheroidal concept routine, that because we're in bubbles. Right now, what does that mean? So, well, because it's a gigantic gene that we're in. The gene is really a water droplet. See, so when we get into this, Steve, it's very extensive but simple, as you know that because you've heard me talk about this before and other places. And so the idea is if we are in the middle of water droplet, what are we doing there? We're suspended, a viewpoint suspended in the middle of a water droplet, but we're embodied in a physical body that's on the ground. Like now we're sitting down in a chair, and where is that chair sitting? Well, it's sitting on the ground or sitting on the floor of a home or a building or what have you. What is the building sitting on? Well, it's sitting on the soil. It's sitting on the earth. So now you get down. Now you get into the cosmos. See how easy it is to segue into all these things, and people think that way. They think in the sequence of thought. But who's addressing it? Who's talking about all these things that people are thinking about? And they're in the middle of this water drop. We're just a viewpoint that we call it people because we're peeping out of a pole. Our physical body is like a pole, and we're called people. Peephole. Who talks about that? I mean, they don't know the derivation of even that term.
So if somebody doesn't hydrate enough, and me personally, I'm a big exponent of hydrating, and I will take at least minimum 4 liters a day, and that's because of my size. Obviously, size makes a difference. But why is it important that we hydrate? Not mega hydrate, because mega hydrate is sometimes you might need to do that if you haven't hydrated. But if you hydrate enough, as I say, 4 liters for me plus, what happens if I didn't do that hydration daily?
Well, yeah, I'm probably doing the same thing about 4 liters too myself. Well, the mega hydration means you'll be dehydrated and your body will break down. See, and that's the idea is if we are 100% water, we need to increase that water somewhere else in terms of maintaining your physical body. All right, now we have 3 sources of that. I'm glad you started talking about that, Steve. It made me think about the details with that. Firstly, we have humidity in the air when we breathe in the air, and then we get into Taoist monks recently, and they're talking about the jade, and the jade is a plant, obviously, a succulent plant. I'm always saying that we're really like a leaf of an aloe vera plant, okay, and we're a gel on the inside. Now, having said that, you can see there's a lot of liquidity with that whole point. Now, when we breathe in the air, and they have a thing called embryonic breathing, which really is you're taking in the hydration inside the womb. See, when they talk about embryonic breathing, because I saw that there was somebody wrote an article by the Taoist monks talking about embryonic breathing, but it's not really breathing. It's really taking in the body brine.
So I'll just continue on this vein about hydration. If we don't hydrate, then we start to end up drying up like a prune, essentially. And the hydration feeds our body, and our body is mainly 100% water, basically. So we need to hydrate all parts of our body. If we don't, we start getting bodily function problems, muscles, tendons, headaches. All this is due to dehydration. And going on a little bit to explain people's perception of hydration, they might say to me, "Oh, I drink 8 cups of tea and 5 cups of coffee a day, and I have some orange juice in the morning," and they believe they're hydrating. They are to a degree, but it's a small degree. It's water, the content of water you need, because caffeine, for instance, takes certain elements out of your body which you need. So if you're drinking coffee tea that's not decaffeinated, you're going to end up with less magnesium, for instance, because caffeine draws magnesium out of the body. So it's water that we're talking about, not
Right.
water with lemon, not water with anything else,
Yes.
unless
Yeah.
it's ice. But water, pure water, is what you need to
Absolutely.
hydrate.
Right. So those are those three levels we have. We have humidity, brine, and then gross water. Like I say, the word gross, that's what philosophers use the term any sort of manifestation. So when we say gross water, it means the water we drink in the glass or whatever, or like you're talking about the 4 liters a day. I do the same thing, at least that. And those are the three ways to hydrate. And the main one is humidity in the air. We take that for granted. When we're breathing in, we don't really know, we're not really paying attention to the extraction of the humidity to maintain our physical body. That's there you go. So there you have it. So the idea is the humidity in the air is very crucial for creating the brine in the saliva in your body. Now I was talking about before I went off the screen there about how the Taoist monks are using the saliva for everything. In reality, it's kind of like a magic elixir that we're not really paying attention to that either as well. So it's very important to create the body brine from the humidity in your body and to they talk about the mouth being a well. I talk about being a reservoir because a well it has a bottom in it. There's a limitation to it. A reservoir is coming in from all sorts of directions. So I've gotten in recently and talking about the brine, pretty much an extension of everything in terms of your MDC. And the Macy dust concept, I was talking about that earlier, where your membrane will go up to the sun. The membrane is extended, the bubble goes all the way to the sun. Anyway, because this is very extensive, and folks, we'll talk about this in the next video too, because it's a very extensive conversation. And I'm glad you brought that up, Steve, because it's very crucial for people's creation around them because we're doing it with our eyes, and also the hydration factor of the brine is creating our world around us. So the brine is what it's about. And they say, well, what you see all these colors and manifestations, how can that be a part of the brine? Well, it's the gene, it's a crystal. What's in a crystal? All the colors of the prism, right? Because we know when it rains and the sun is out, on the other side of the raindrop, what's over there? A rainbow, the colors, right? So it proves within a clarity, like we are just drops of water, and we have all these colors that we see around us. It's just the prism of imagery around us, see? So when we get into the details of the eyes being the creators, then we see the responsibility of what water plays into it because the gene is just a water droplet. We're in a gigantic gene right now, and we're talking in the imageries created by that gene. You see, and it's when we get into the details of that, it's pretty exciting because people now can see what they're really doing in their life in terms of the creation. They're creating it moment to moment. And in this moment, everybody creates their own world that's around them through the processes of what we're talking about in revergence. It's called revergence creation. So you see, so we're going to have to talk more about that in the next video because this is a very extensive conversation. I was talking about that yesterday on a call. We were talking about revergence, and one of the people we didn't quite understand revergence, because when you do the convergence to the Bindu, you're coming from the two eyes and triangulating on the center. When you look in the center, that's coming from from a divergence to a convergence. But once you get to the convergence, now there's a revergence of four different levels after the Bindu. But what we say in the first 9 minutes, you want to just look at the Bindu only and not get into the revergence levels, which are four. There's four levels after that. And so we're probably going to have to do the next video to probably talk about revergence. It was a word that I coined just recently. It's called redivergence, because I couldn't really figure out what's going on beyond the Bindu, but now we realize it's kind of a reverse divergence. See, reverse divergence, I coined the word revergence. It's a good word, don't you think, Steve? Revergence.
It is, yeah. They're
Okay.
always good words.
Okay, we're running out of time, right? I can see Lena, right? So,
Yeah.
we're gonna end it. I got to do my bye for now thing, Steve. So go ahead there, Lena.
Okay, thank you very much to the viewers for watching. Please share, like, and subscribe. And thank you to Steve and Grantham, and we'll see you next time.
Bye for now.
Bye for now. Bye.